everybody, we're going to be making Easter bread today, and this is just something that I've made over the years, and it's kind of like a coffee cake, and I always put it in my Easter basket every year, and people have asked, you know, do I have the recipe? Could you show me how to make it? So I thought while we're all stuck inside these days that this would be a nice thing to do. So this Easter bread is actually kind of like a
It's like lemon cake and coffee cake.
Yeah. It's sweet. It's kind of like a Danish or like a coffee cake kind of thing.
Would taste good.
This recipe is from the Serbian church in Columbus. And I know Father Matea mentioned how these are some of the traditions used there in Columbus. It has this graphic in here about Easter basket.
Hristos voskrese iz mrtvih, smrtiju smrt poprav, Isušim vo grobjeh život darovav.
It talks about how the Easter bread is symbolic of Christ himself, who is our true bread. So it's a nice thing to make this Paschal weekend when you're celebrating with your family. You can have a little treat and think of how Christ is our bread of life. This recipe actually has 3 steps. So step 1, you're going to mix your dry ingredients. So we have 1 cup of flour, and so I'm going to have you actually put it in the bowl. All right, Lonnie, you're going to put in 1/3 cup of sugar. Good job. Okay, and then we're going to add a pack of dry yeast. Here, so do you know what yeast is?
You put it in to kind of use it to make bread. It makes it like rise. It makes it go poof.
What kind of yeast you use will depend how fast your bread rises. Okay, Lonnie, the last one is this teaspoon of salt. So go ahead. Yep, go ahead and put it in there. And now we're going to mix it together.
I'm scared.
And you can use a hand mixer. It's totally fine. I just use my stand-up mixer because it's less work for me. And turn it on and just get all those dry ingredients mixed together. And that's really all you have to do is mix these dry ingredients. And now we're going to go into the kitchen, and on the stovetop we're going to melt our butter and our milk, and then we'll put these 2 things together. Okay. For this next part, we're going to melt a 1/2 cup of butter, which is an entire stick, and you're going to cut it up into little pieces so it melts better. Okay?
Yeah.
So we're going to add our butter to this pan. I'm going to turn it on a really low heat.
Honey?
Because it doesn't really need to melt as much as get warm, because we're going to add this to that dry mixture with the yeast and the flour and the sugar. And if it gets too hot, it'll kill the yeast and it won't rise.
Ow, ow, ow.
We're just going to turn it on a really low heat like that. Need some help?
Touch.
And then a 1/2 cup of milk. Yeah.
Messy.
Totally okay.
No.
So we'll just let that sit here at a very low heat while we get some of the other ingredients ready.
Yep.
And we're going to mix it all together. You're going to need 1.5 tablespoons of grated lemon peel. And save your lemon, because when you're done, you're going to want to use the juice for your icing. The next set of ingredients that we're going to add are 2 eggs and then 2 egg yolks, which I will admit I really am not great at separating the yolks, so this could be interesting. Hit it hard on here. Hit it on there hard enough to crack it. Hit it hard again. Woo! And no shell! You did it! I'm going to use a separate bowl to try to separate my egg yolks. I have a yolk separator, which is pretty handy. Crack it right in there. So then you can add your other yolk into the rest of the eggs. So again, we have 2 eggs and 2 egg yolks in here. We have a cup of flour, and then we have the grated lemon peel. It's 1.5 tablespoons of grated lemon peel, which is basically the peel from 1 lemon. And you're gonna keep this lemon to use the juice for the icing. Let's go check on the milk and the butter and see if it's ready. Okay, so I just grabbed our milk and our butter off of the stove, and I let it cool for a little bit. When you stick your finger in, it should feel warm, but not too hot. So if like you would wash your hands with it, or your kid could wash their hands with it, it's a perfect temperature, okay? Because that's what's gonna activate the yeast. So the next step, now that we have our eggs and egg yolks, our cup of flour, and our lemon peel, we're gonna add this milk and butter, and then we're gonna add those. So ladies, let's see. I'm gonna have you do this part, because you have to do it carefully. And it's a little heavy for you, Lana, okay? So Sophie, grab this. Go ahead and pour it in.
I'll try to trust myself.
Slowly. Okay. Go for it.
Does
it smell good? So you're gonna start it at a low mix, and then you can put it up to about a medium for about 2 minutes. So Aunt Lonnie, you can pour the eggs in here.
Yay!
Okay.
Yeah.
Pour them on in. All right. So if you want to add the flour, and I'm actually just going to turn this on as we're adding things so that it kind of gets mixed in. Now it might fluff up at you. Put it in there because you're the little one.
I already want to eat it.
All right, so we're going to beat this at a medium speed for about 2 minutes. You can add like raisins or almonds or some other mix-ins. If I put those in, my kids won't touch it. That's a surefire way to get them to say they don't want it if I put anything suspicious in there. So this is part 1, and here is how it looks. Okay. So now that we have this sticky dough, we're going to add, this is another 1.5 cups of flour. Now we're going to add a little bit of this at a time until it makes a sticky dough that leaves the sides of the bowl. If you go too fast, it'll flip out of there. As I've added flour, it's starting to stick to my attachment here. So you can just use a spatula to kind of knock that off of there. Say I added about 1 cup of flour. What we're going to do with our remaining flour, you can kind of get it on your hands a little and put a little bit on our surface, because we're going to put the dough on the cutting board. Okay, go for it. Wait, It is. Perfect. All right, so this is good, and it feels good. When I push it with my hands, it's not really sticking to me. This is looking great. So this is looking pretty nice to me, okay? You're gonna have about a ball like this that'll fit in your hand. And so the next step, which is the best, super easy, we get to let it rise. So you can go do some other stuff while the bread is rising. So I just have a big old bowl here, and I'm gonna grease it where you have around. So you're just gonna stick it in a bowl like this. So you're just gonna wanna cover it up and put it somewhere warm near your oven, but not in too hot of a spot. And we're gonna leave it there for an hour, and then we'll do the next part. So our bread is rising, and something you can do while you're waiting for your bread to rise is get your cans ready. So it doesn't really matter what kind of can. This is typically the size I use. And you can grease it and flour it and all that, but one trick that I learned is that if we line it with parchment paper, the bread just slides right out when you're done baking it. So that's kind of how I do it. Trace the bottom of our can to make the circle. To make the circle of the parchment to kind of stick it down in the bottom. Now, when you cut, you're going to want to
kind of like stain the line.
Well, you're going to want to actually cut smaller than this circle. So if you kind of want to go in about 1/4 inch and then cut, then that'll be small enough to fit inside. And there's no... And one good thing to know is if it comes up higher like this, that's okay. So how do they look, Lonnie?
They look like a perfect.
All right. So hopefully by now your bread has risen. It's usually about an hour, but it really depends on your yeast. So when you let the bread rise, it should double in size. So and it looks like that. I'd say you can let it rise till it's near the top of the can, and then they're ready to bake. All right, so let's check on our bread. It's already to the top of the can, so I think it's ready to bake. So we're gonna go ahead and stick this in the oven at 350 for about 30 minutes. Check your bread, and when it's kind of golden on the top, it should be done. So I have my cooling rack ready. Towel to handle the can. And I just kind of want to shake it out of here. It's still warm. I don't want to burn my hands. And I'm going to let it cool. These are pretty tall, and if you want to use 3 cans instead of 2, it'll make them a little shorter. You can maybe share them with somebody. So there you have it. We're going to let them cool completely, and then we'll get back and ice them.
Boys, wheels on the bus.
So she's going to juice the lemon, and Lonnie is going to get some of our other ingredients into the bowl. So Lonnie, go ahead and take the powdered sugars, 3/4 of a cup. Let's put a teaspoon of water in with the sugar. Okay, you want to give it a little bit of a mix, a little more. We got our tablespoon. Go ahead and put it in. I think I'm going to do is add a tiny bit of water to it. Just a little bit. In order to ice them, this is such a fun part. You're just going to take your spoon and you're going to go right on the top. And what this icing will do, it'll spread out and it'll fall down the sides of your bread. Almost like candle wax when it's melting.
That looks so good.
And what I did, I just put some parchment down here for easy cleanup. Because this will drip all the way down, and kind of the icing will need somewhere to settle once it drips down the side of the bread. So we usually do sprinkles because the kids like that. So you can put your bread in your basket, and when you're home with your family, sing the Easter tropar. Christ is risen.
Indeed, he's risen.
Christos voskrese.
Воистину воскресе.
Happy Easter.
Weird.
You can look at either camera, guys. This one you see a little closer.
Uh-huh.
Mixing.
All right. So,
Low camera.
Oh,
Let's do the renegade.
I don't like.
and it's, what did I say? Sticky dough.
I'm sorry, I just had to get this.
For what? We're making so and so. Let's go.
All right.